Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to PCM22. It's career mode. This is episode number 15. So, this is the final sponsor objective of the year, at least that matters, because anything after August or anything after the last day of July is irrelevant. So, this is the last one. It's only 2 stars, and it's not a big deal because there's nothing we can do here. We can fail this, we can finish in dead last, and it will not matter because we have secured the 100% evaluation by quite some margin. We had 2 objectives coming up that were left, and one of them was 4 stars, and there was still that slim chance, but then we went on a tear during the national championships, got numerous victories, one in the time trial, and that was the one that I figured was a better chance for us. We ended up with 4 or 5 champions in the road races. That was unexpected, and that burst us from not only achieving the goal but getting that 100% evaluation, plus that 4-star objective that we did have, the hard one, the French championships, where we had still 2 riders left on the team but both very, very low rated. We ended up with good race day condition, and we did get the top 10. We got an 8th place in that one, so surprise, surprise, we are still in contention. Now, for this one, the objective is to win a stage, and even though it doesn't matter, there's still that little part of me that's like, hey, come on now. It's an objective. We're going to achieve it, right? So that's where I'm at this stage. It's for completion's sake more than anything else. After that, though, we are going to be getting into the signing period, and I'm really looking forward to that one, as we'll be heading into year number 3. Theoretically, we are going to be cementing our position as a Continental Pro team this year. We are not in the reach of the big-time riders yet, so it should just be get even better than we already are right now, add some more depth to that quality at the top, get rid of some more of the leftovers from that first-year group, and let's finish this race up. 16K to go. The last of the climbing is nearly done. The final rider is just about ready to be reeled in. And then now with 15K to go, it's time for a sprint. And the team is not looking so good in terms of positioning at the moment. There we go. Okay, 11.8. Perfect timing. I'm going to go ahead and set up my sprint train. And away we go. Perfect timing for the field to sit up a little bit means we should be able to get out front here pretty quickly. Also in that the little bit of a yo-yo there split the field momentarily, giving us an even better opportunity to get out front. Already inside 10K, I think we want to start pushing really hard here really soon. And we're going to gel these guys up one after another as we set up. Okay, 99 from here on out. 8K to go. Full team at our disposal. Huggins on the -5, not looking so good on that part. In fact, I want him to just give me a little bit of full speed sprint here. There you go. Okay, on to Bogley, 6K to go. He is not well rated as a on the flat, so we're gonna have Bogley do a mild sprint as well to keep that pace as high as we can get him to be. In fact, let's push a little bit harder as we then gel up the rest of these guys. And we are now out front and pushing with 4K to go. Okay, on to, I think we're going to go straight into Frigo at this point. And he's going to push a lot harder. And we're going to get Coop to try to help break toe. And then Bogley to go. Okay, Frigo. Keeping up that pace. 3K to go now. Which means we are on to 2.5. On to Mickles. Full sprint from here for him. 1.6 on to Pithy. Pithy's leading out Steininger. We've gone deep, but we are also splitting the field a little bit here, you can see. Pithy out of energy. I might have pushed a little too hard with Frigo. Frigo has really hurt his own team here, and that is really taking the gas out of a lot of these guys. Does Steininger or any of them have enough? We're on the podium. We are on the podium, but I do not think we're going to win. It's not. It's Albaniz, then Steininger, Mickels, and Pithy. 2, 3, 4. The Frigo part to that sprint. The other guys, so bad that their mild sprint didn't hurt the chasing riders. As we got down to the end, having Frigo, because that was something different than what we've done. The lead out hasn't been good enough from a number of riders. So the lead out was a lot better. However, when I got down to Frigo, and Frigo started sprinting, that hurt because he had better pace. So I might have to mix tactics to get the best out of these guys. We've gotten some wins, but how to get the most consistently, still a little bit of an experiment with the group we have. Of course, next year is going to be a different matter, isn't it? Frigo, by the way, has leveled up on me. He's got a 71 sprint, 70 acceleration, 77 hills rating, and 75 resistance now. Starting to be a decent puncher, and he is our highest rated rider. 25k to go, and we are still chasing pretty hard to a breakaway that was 4, now 3, just under a minute to them. And with them having not been caught just yet, that pace is still quite high. We also have a climb here that we're hitting right now. It's the last of these, though there's a little bit of undulation all along the way to the finish line. I've set the guys up to an 80 now to make sure that they stay near the front end, and they do, and they recover, and we are now set to go for the run into the finish. So we'll be putting another sprint train together. We'll give it another shot. The experiment last time didn't quite go according to plan. I think if I go my more traditional route, I'm likely to get a better result. Today, though, Steininger on the same +3, it's his expected both of the last 2 days. Pithy was expecting a -2, so today he drew a -2. Yesterday he drew something really good, wasn't it? +4, +5. I mean, it was fantastic. He's still the best lead out option, but I think Mickels might be just a little bit better off today because of the stamina resistance, and then they'll have similar numbers otherwise. Oh, bad. Coop +5 while being sick. Dang, buddy. How'd you manage that one? Alright, and Huggins looks good too, though. I don't need... You know what? We can just go hard. Period. Straight to the end. Huggins, go ahead and get on the front. 99, all the way, buddy. High tempo. Let's see what we can do to dismantle the other competitors. By the way, in terms of speed, there's probably 12 riders here that all have a chance, that are all up there. 2 of them are Steininger and Pithy. Pithy obviously won't do it today because of he's just not does not have the pace. Okay, Huggins is done. That just happened a moment ago, so on to Bogley. Again, not much of a sprinter, and 6k out. Let's go ahead and do that soft sprint for him. And inside 6k means to gel up on these guys. Huggins, can you hang on to the back end? Okay, Bogley done, or almost done. 5k to go. Acceleration's good for Coop, but not the top speed, so let's go ahead and do him as well. We won't push too hard yet, but we are going to push a little bit harder once he gets up to speed there. 3.8. Okay, now Frigo. Good flat, good sprint. Let's break things up behind us, and Frigo pushes on. Pithy out of position somehow, with Mickels in front of him, and they're both fresh. So switch that up. 2.8. Frigo, start your sprint. And that's, of course, taking its toll on everybody behind him, but as you go down the line, it's not as bad. So on to Mickels as he continues around the corner, and it has opened a pretty significant gap. Steininger, Pithy doesn't have the red bar left, but Steininger's in a good position. 800 meters. Mickels still has a chance at a good result himself, and ouch. Steininger, yeah. Again, that strategy, I switched up a little, but I still went earlier than I normally go with Frigo. And that just, he is fast enough that those guys behind him feel the tempo, feel the pace. And it does not leave Steininger with enough energy at the end. So even though I waited a little bit later, I still went earlier than I would normally with Frigo. And I shouldn't have. I need to just do the 99. I just need to keep that strong position a little bit further. Starting 1, 2, 3, 4, third lead out man at 3K on the sprint. It's just too soon. So we definitely need to get down inside 2K and only sprint with those last few guys. So Frigo, now we know. I tried, didn't work. The other guys, that experiment, that the mix of light sprint is good, is helpful. But getting to a guy like Frigo who has a faster speed and doing it with him, not a good combination. So ultimately, fewer riders is one of the ways to go once you do get more competitive in the sprint, and when you've tipped that balance, when you've reached that point. This is the kind of race where we have, because we're not chasing the world's fastest guys, and we don't need the lead out quite as much. We don't need it to be as pronounced. Lessons learned for sure. All right, folks, well, let's go ahead and proceed forward. We've gotten a podium. We're fine. I don't need to have the win. We could go for a punchy. I think there's one punchy stage, but you know what? It's okay. Let's get to the end of July. Big surprise and super tempting. So 31st of July, we did get our 100%. Eurocycling Trips, of course, is offering us what we already knew, 134K. The max isn't far off, meaning we're probably looking at one more season at most to stay with the team, or maybe it's time to leave. 2 would literally be the longest we could stay with the sponsor. Now, for this Navman, New Zealand, okay, New Zealand, Australia is what they care about, and we already have a rider from New Zealand. There's plenty of Australian riders on our radar. We could certainly get after one of them, but I'm very much intrigued by Bird Cycling, or BIBD. Actually, it's not Bird, it's BIBD out of Brunei. So very interesting that, like the Guam one, it is totally out there. Not in a typical place to see a sponsor in this game whatsoever. Now, for this season, it's only 1,000 more, but the key here is that it's nearly 100,000 more max, which would make a much bigger difference next season. Now, for those who don't know, the reason why that would be such a significant difference is, even though there's only a 1,000 difference now, your projections for the coming year on how much it could increase by has a lot to do with what the max is. And so if it takes, 5 years to get to max, or 4 years to get to max, whatever the starting budget is in the first year, take the max budget, divide it out by about 4, and that's your projection, your growth rate for those 4 years. And it's fairly set. We're already a couple years into that now, or going to be a couple years into that. So we're down to, 2 years to reach our max. BIBD would be in the first year. And then you divide that by 4, and you're talking about a growth of nearly double. I'd have to do the math on this one, but with an extra 100,000, it would be 25,000 more. So it would be nearly double what we are getting on a yearly basis for Eurocycling Trips. We could be looking at, instead of an increase of 25K, an increase of 50K come next season. Very tempting for that part alone. Here's the worrying thing if we do that, if we accept this new offer. There are important territories: Brunei, Singapore, Malaysia. Now, I've scouted plenty of riders from those nations and maybe still have a chance to get after and pick one or two guys up from those countries. But from the dossiers that I have set, nobody's from those three countries. I'm not going to get quality riders out of those three countries. Guam, France, and the UK. Well, I already have a Guamanian and rider from the UK come next season. And I have a dossier on a French rider for next season. Meaning pretty good shape on that part for the sponsor confidence. Picking up a new sponsor from nations that we have nothing on is a risk. It is a risk. Long term though, that chance at the increase, 50K, so tempting. I'm actually still undecided. This is not for dramatic effect. I am talking this throughout with you. I wish I could hear your responses right now. You'll have to let me know in the comments below, but I won't find out till later what you thought of the decision. A huge part of me wants to stay with Eurocycling trips for one more season, especially as we are built for those three nations. And I know we can be successful again come next year, especially if we were successful this year. Next year, we're going to be only better. And, you just continue to grow. Brunei, it's taking a risk. It is taking a risk. But it is for an extra 25K per season. We would lock down with them for a couple more years. We would see our budget increase by roughly 100,000 over the next 2 years. If we find that we can be successful, that would push us up to about 235 in 2 years' time, instead of getting to maybe 160 next year and then looking for a new sponsor then. It's a risk. It's a risk, folks, but we're going to do it. BIBD, new sponsor. Just to show you how bad these outgoing riders are, the Tour of Utah, 7 stages, climbs, sprints, a little time trial, has all of the above, but not a major race. So we sent a not major team because I had 3 other races that occurred over the course of the week that this race was ongoing. Coop was the leader. Coop was placed in the teens. He has withdrawn here in the final stage, it looks like, relinquishing his position, probably injured. Not going to have a big impact on the end of the season. It's fine. It might stunt his development a little bit. It sucks that he has dropped from, top 20 to being withdrawn from the race, one of just 3 riders. But looking at the rest of the team, Verdijk, the only rider out of the other 5 who has finished ahead of anyone in this field. The only rider to finish ahead of anyone in this field. And it was only one rider that he finished ahead of. That's how bad that group is. Poor Coop was all alone and still was sitting in 14th, 15th, 16th place, whatever it was. Quick look at what is returning. Frigo, Coop, Bogley, and Pithy. Coop, by the way, broke his collarbone. Those 4 riders already give us a solid core that, at least at the moment, has us ranked 23rd in the index. Now remember, you have, 17 is the current state, World Tour teams, and then you have about the same 17 or 18 Continental Pro teams. So it's down to about 35th place. Based on my dossiers, we should get a little bit better, but theoretically, all we're going to do is move up the order. Last season, we were right at the bottom of the list of teams making Continental Pro. This season, I expect us to be upper middle. I do not think we're going to be making the drastic jump that sees us reach World Tour. Maybe by next season. Maybe. We certainly do have a tolerable budget, and looking at the salaries of all these guys, plenty of money to spend. Do the math, make sure we have enough for whatever signings. We may end up with 1 or 2 guys wanting pretty hefty paydays that I may or may not to give out to players that aren't, or to riders that aren't quite good enough to be pure team leaders. 105,000 to spend is more than enough to sign what ultimately is just going to be a couple riders that are going to demand a bit more in terms of salary. Kevin Vermark just leveled up. It would have been nice if he would have waited a week to do this. Just the other day, he was still a 4-star guy. So Kevin Vermark, it increased his points in mid-July. and we only got him up to 70%. So with mild interest and now a 4.5 star kind of guy, Kemmermark might ask for a bit of money. Vandenberg also somebody, but we do have the 100% interest, so it shouldn't be too bad. And then I just added Abner Gonzalez. The Puerto Rican is one of those kind of guys that you can hang on to throughout because he's got potential. He could be fairly good and is from a nation. He should be the only guy that we're going to see that's an elite talent there at any stage in time. He's dominant force in his home nation, makes it a little easier to make that selection when you only get one rider. That's why I've opted to try to get him now. And that, you have a handful of 4-star guys. And when we are coming from a handful of 4-star guys and 1 4.5, I mean, if you get all of these guys, which we certainly have a shot at, sucks that Vashek would come up 5% short of getting the max rating, so that'll just keep him in yellow. But if we were to sign all of these guys, that's a solid foundation. I mean, that gets you 3 4.5 star guys, which bumps up our rating a little bit, would probably temporarily put us at World Tour status, would, once you get through everybody else signing, drop us out. But it would definitely have us on higher end of Continental Pro. Plus we have 3 existing 4-star guys. This gives us 4 additional 4-star guys, meaning this is mostly high-end talent for us. 3.5 stars, 2 guys there. And now that we've picked up the new sponsor, first thing that I need to do though is vacate my search, which has slowly whittled me down to here's my list, but I am gonna have to make that hard choice on somebody from here. Vashek might be the obvious one to go. Could save 7 points. Had 1 left, so that gives me 8 points to put into trying to get riders from Brunei, Singapore, and Malaysia, the best that I can find, to do that the hard way. But looking through those, depending on where we're at with points, we might have to sacrifice somebody else from the list as well. Gonzalez is somebody I think I would like to get signed now, so maybe it's a Vermark that we wait on and keep that slot open a little bit longer, because again, I don't think we're making the push to World Tour just yet, so I don't need to spend more. He's probably going to ask for a bit more money compared to the other guys, and 100,000, no problem. But I'm still thinking long term. I want guys on good contracts for now. I want to stay well below whatever budget, so that when it comes time that we do have to re-sign guys that are growing or get a superstar, we can actually afford to do that. Adding to the challenge, Brunei, 0 riders in the database right now. Nothing coming up in the search, whether free agent or just anybody. Makes it hard to have one, doesn't it? Singapore has just 3 riders, and all 3 are available for the coming year. Now, the best one right now is also the youngest, and you would think best candidate, but in terms of potential, not much. Classics, though, could be okay. The iffy thing here is what to do, because somebody who appears to be worse also appears to be better. Will be a better sprinter, will be a better climber, is and will be a better time trialist. Already has the national championship for at least the time trial. This might be the guy we need to go with, because he's the best current, though his evaluation isn't as good. But when you compare, they're actually quite close. We're talking about 63 time trial and 60 to 63 mountain sprint punch, and then we're looking at somebody in the 50s. He's got a 66 resistance and a 67 flat, and for that he's rated higher apparently. But you see how low the potential is, except for the classics. That cobble rating is only a 63 and appears like it's only going to go up to maybe 70 eventually. Kind of disappointed with the choices that I have here, but I do feel like we need to bring one in. It's only 2 points, so we can certainly afford to get 2 points and add somebody from the team. It's going to make them at least semi-happy that we have them. I think we might be better off taking the guy who's got the jersey, though, as he's bound to be more popular. So after going through the entirety of the lengthier list for Malaysia, none of the riders are particularly good, and none of the riders have high potential. So what's going to help us with the here and now? Well, we want to be able to compete for the jersey, for the popularity in the home race, and then they can just be a domestique otherwise. So what can you get out of a domestique, and who can compete? Well, when you break it down, Lacazette here has potential as a sprinter. However, 28 years of age means slow progress for them. but it looks like they still have room for growth. So they can get a little bit better than they are. They are already okay as a sprinter, nothing else. 71 sprint, 71 acceleration, slow otherwise. They're never going to be in big races for me, but they could serve as a lead out man in minor races. They could serve as a sprinter in minor races. They do have a little room for development. And even though he's 28, I'm going to go ahead and sign him to a 2-year contract. And with that type of sprint, he's got every opportunity to claim victory in the Malaysian National Championships if it's a sprint. So now I have 56 points remaining. There's 59 points in dossiers to my left. So we are off by 3. One of the possible things is McKellar, if I decide they're not good enough, but that sprint in Northern Classics and just overall is tempting. That is pretty tempting to get after them. They've claimed 7 victories so far in their career, but that's one option. Tamir might be another option, and then you'd have 2 points left to get after whoever, whatever, or Vashek because of the less than 100%. But it's probably going to be one of those 3. I will compare them head to head, but let me go ahead and start going down the list, and we'll see who we're able to sign and for how much. By the way, with those 2 signings, taking care of 2 of the 3 nations that the sponsor cares about, and they're not going to be terribly thrilled with literally having just 2 riders out of those 3 nations, especially not having the major one. It adds to the challenge, but we'll at least get a little bit of bonus out of having those 2 present. Meanwhile, I have exactly 100,000 left, and that should easily get us the 7 riders that we would be able to take out of these 8. Of the 8 riders listed to my left, I have signed 6 of them at this point. I have enough points left to go after 1 rider remaining on the list, and the one is the hardest, and I've waited till the end to see where we're at with all the others. The rider that I have left out is Tamir. Tamir just does not have a lot of potential and is the lowest current quality anyway. And also, now that we switched to a new sponsor, we do not need a French rider at this point in time anyway. So Tamir is the one we are passing on. That saves me enough points. So we've already signed McKellar, Vashek, Arietta, Banu, Gonzalez, and Vandenberg. Those 6, all from separate nations from what we already had, brings our grand total to 18 right now. 5 of those 6 I have signed to 3-year deals. 1 of them to a 2-year deal, and that is, I believe, Bano. And that's because he doesn't quite have the potential of some of the other guys, and I didn't quite like the money that he was wanting. The combined for those 6 riders is 50K, or just a shade under. So we have 50,000 still left. For Mark is somebody that I don't know if I want to sign him for anything over 20. I want him signed in the teens. He has been a leader for me a couple of years ago, PCM20, I want to say, in the career mode. He won quite a few races for us as a puncher. For Mark, now, 76 hills, 73 mountain, already fairly good stamina resistance, good downhill, good acceleration, certainly capable, but he's not going to develop a ton more as a puncher. Will develop a bit more as a climber, but he's only got so much left. Even though he's only 22, he's gotten a lot of his levels out of the way, or so it would seem, and only 1 career victory. Of course, I was able to get a lot more than that for him, but 1 career victory. He's only appeared in 2 monuments with no wins. So, we're not talking about a top-notch rider. But he's riding for Team DSM. He's, a young development guy for them. And we've got a chance to get him signed. If we can get him signed for about 15, then I'd be happy to sign him up for 3 years. If it's too much, we might offer him 2. And if it's way too much, we might offer him 1, because we certainly have the money, and then look to other options come next season. That could be the way to go for Mark. But now that I know where we're at, where we stand, I like doing that before getting into the guy who wants probably quite a bit more money. You can see here, Lacazette at 2.5 is the only one not visible behind me on the face cam. You can see Vandenberg and Abner Gonzalez did require a little bit more to get over the top, but at $13,000, that's pretty affordable, and a 3-year contract to 2 young riders who have plenty of development still ahead of them. Those guys are going to be quite useful for us. And then, Benoit at the 9.2, I just didn't like his mixture of where he's at and potential to pay him that kind of money and keep him on 3 years. So with him expiring at the same time of that first set of riders, that keeps our options a bit more open in the future, long term. Okay, it looks like he's actually going to be fine with less money. But here's the deal. Right now, the role, he's not happy. The salary, he's not happy. The interest, he's not happy. I do have a feeling we're going to be able to go for the 3 years, no problem, because it's not going to take a huge increase, but I do think it's going to take about 15 to get him signed. Let's go ahead and bump this up to a leader. He should be happy with that, which, by the way, gives me 0 absolute leaders and 0 absolute sprinters through the first 2 seasons. That's helpful down the road on keeping them happy, but I already know that he's going to want a bit more money with the interest being low. We'll start at 13.6 and see where that gets us on the first offer, and we're not too far off. He's happy with these 2, not so much with these. Getting the money a little higher could bump that and see a significant jump. I do have some room to work with, some wiggle room, so I'm going to take it a little slow here at first and see what kind of jump that gives us. Fairly good jump, but that also put us into the happy zone, which means we're going to get less of a jump this time. So I think it's going to take 16 to get him signed. So we'll go ahead and take 16. And there you go. Yeah, that did it. 16 got him signed. Not too bad. Not too bad. We can afford to keep somebody like this for 16.6 on a 3-year deal. Now, that also does mean that come 3 years from now, we're going to have a good amount of money expiring on 3 guys that, combined are making about 40,000. That's not a ton. That is really not a ton. That 40K could easily be to retain one of these guys, or it could be more than that. And that's why you got to play your cards close, keep your budget fairly respectable to get the best out of your riders. But this is going to be a big increase for us. I still think this is putting us Continental Pro, but we're going to go from the bottom end towards the top end of Continental Pro next season. First things first, we are already confirmed that we will not be World Tour. 21st is where they have us in the index, and you can see a very big gap between us and Movistar. Depending on the size of your screen, you can see that we are at, I'd say, roughly 3.2 stars for next season in our evaluation. Looks like UnoX is about 3.3, and then you're looking at 3.5 for Movistar, and this whole group is 3.5 or better. And then you still have a lot of good riders out there that are going to need to sign, which means we are not going up. Even if somebody levels up, we're not going to go up. There's too many riders out there to sign, which means we are going to go down. In fact, at 3.2 stars, you'd figure all of these guys at about 3 stars are going to go up, which means we still could actually find ourselves near the bottom of Continental Pro for next season. Wouldn't that be shocking if that was the case? It may happen. It may happen yet. So we came in, 33rd, 34th this last season. Wouldn't that be something if we were still down around 33rd, 34th for the next year? Could happen. Database gets better and better, stronger and stronger year by year. Now, I don't think we started the season anywhere near 3 stars. I actually think we were just slightly above 2.5, but through the development we've had throughout the season, that has pushed us up. That's pushed us up higher, and right now they've got us, looks like, pegged at 3.1. I mean, we have just a shade of a star. So the growth for next year on paper doesn't appear to be a lot, but you can see the web, we're going to be a little bit stronger in the sprint. We've got one guy out and one guy in as sprinters, and the guy in, Vandenberg, is much stronger than the one that will be departing. You can see Oingereng is back, and then the weaker riders of Ben Faisal and Lacazette coming in to help please the sponsor, just to be domestiques at the bottom of the list. Panamar still has not had that level up where everybody else has, but you can see the majority of the guys we're bringing in are boosting the upper end of the team. I mean, we have 1, 2, 3 guys returning where we have 5 guys up there, 4 and 6 when you add in Vashek, and that's your 4 stars and above range. And, at the start of this season, I think we had 1 4-star guy total, and then the others were 3.5. So we have built that profile up. We were able to attract bigger riders this year. By next season, we'll be able to attract an even better bunch and, be able to push to new heights. And with over 30,000 left in budget for the year, that's a lot of money to be able to apply next season. We do have some expiring contracts a little bit next year, but not much. So we'll be looking to splash money on 1 or 2, 3 guys, and that's going to be it. So next year is going to be a very different year in terms of what we get after in terms of riders. We've got numbers now. We've got depth now. And the expiring contracts, the 24s, Oingereng, Casper Anderson. Oof, that's it. Just the two expiring contracts. So next year we're going to be looking to splash cash a little bit on a few guys and not bring in a ton. We don't want to push up into the 20s or anything like that. We want to just get a couple, 2 or 3 solid guys that are going to raise our profile and maybe push us into World Tour. All right, folks, season is not done yet, but I've only gotten into that single World Tour race this year. I don't think there's much left on the calendar that's going to matter for us. We're not in a position to usefully participate in the Euros or the World Championships for that matter. And therefore, there might be 1 or 2 races left that we pick up. But next episode, we should be pushing straight to the end of the season and getting ourselves into a new year with a new team that's a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger than the current year. The biggest difference for next year's roster is that we're going to have some climbing finally. We had the only climber in Bogley, and Bogley was only, a 71-74, and he has leveled up this year to get to that. We're adding in some guys with some climbing capability. For Mark, 73, already better. Gonzalez, 75-75, already better. Beno, 73-74. Arietta, 74-75. And Vashek, 71-74. Panamar was supposed to be the other climber. He's a 69-71. So one area we really lacked this year was our climbing legs. Next year, they're not great, but we've definitely got some climbing legs, and we've got some guys that when you start getting those level ups, we're going to get better. And looking at that roster, looking at that age, look how nice and young this roster is outside of Lacazette. So, and Oingereng, who's, still got that one last year on that contract, and then he'll end up retiring as well from Guam. I'm still interested in keeping a Guam rider on the roster, so we'll keep an eye out next season to see if we can add one, even if it's just a domestique at the end. But moving away from the sponsor and moving on to another sponsor, still Southeast Asia, though Guam is not technically Southeast Asia. They just classify it here in the scouting department. But let's wrap things up. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there. Bye for now.